Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The concepts of Islam and feminism have been increasingly controversial in today's society. There has been a recent movement to involve Muslims, especially Muslim women, with feminism. There are some who claim that Islam is totally incompatible with feminism, but there are others who state that Islam and feminism go hand in hand, even going as far to say things like Islam is the most feminist religion or that Prophet Muhammad was a feminist. So what does this all mean, and how can we make sense of this? At the core of this discussion, of course, is women's rights. And after all, feminism claims to be simply about reclaiming women's rights. But what are these rights, and what is the moral basis which defines these rights? And importantly as well, what does Islam have to say about women's rights? So firstly, just to recap what Islam is, I'm sure you all know what Islam is, but Islam is a guidance for humankind which was brought down by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through His messengers. It came to teach us how to uphold justice and how to ensure everyone gets their rights. This includes the right of God, the right of your family, yourself, animals, even things like trees, food, and water, which I think a lot of people are like, outside of Islam, there isn't much talk about justice, outside of not even just humans and animals, but even inanimate objects. So the all-powerful, all-knowing, just God who fashioned this earth and all that is in it knows best what justice is and how to achieve it. So in Islam, the conception of the world is that it was created with a perfect balance. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states, وَالسَّمَاءَ رَفَعَهَا وَوَضَعَ الْمِيزَانَ أَلَّا تَطْغَوْا فِي الْمِيزَانِ. So He has raised up the heaven and He has set a balance that you may not transgress in the balance. So this balance, does anyone have an idea of what this balance is? So in the tafsir, the balance actually means justice. So to set the balance implies that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has established the entire system of the universe on this foundation of justice. So had there been no harmony and balance and justice established among the countless stars and planets moving in space, and the mighty forces working in the universe, and the innumerable creatures and things found here, the life on earth would not have functioned even for a moment. So if you look at the creatures existing in the air and water on land for millions and millions of years on this earth, they continue to exist because full justice and balance has been established in a way that gives rise to life. So in this concept, any act of injustice affects the whole universe, and that can be as small as taking a toy off a child. That these actions in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're big things. Every time you transgress and you oppress someone, you are affecting the whole balance of the universe, which was created in this perfect balance, which is justice. And I think that's a really beautiful way to think about it, that it's not even just about me and you, it's about everything. It's about the way that Allah has created the entire universe. So usurping the rights of others is an act of rebellion against the nature of the universe, which was set in this balance. So I'm going to ask you guys a question now. What do you think feminism is? Anyone have any ideas? What have you heard about feminism? Rights of women? Yeah? Anyone else? No? Destruction? What do you mean by that? Anyone else have any idea about what feminism is? Yeah? Yeah, equal rights as humans, yeah? Anyone seen things in the news or read any articles or anything like that? You guys not exposed to any of this? You don't read? No? Yeah, social and political movements. Mm-hmm.
But it does have a lot of religious
Okay. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Good point. So, what you guys have kind of collectively um, said is that feminism is mostly about women's rights. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you that I thought this too until probably a year ago. So I've always been passionate. I'm going to tell you a bit about my story and my kind of journey with feminism, I guess. You could call it like that. So I've always been passionate about women's rights from a young age. And so I've hated the way that women are considered less, that, women don't get taken seriously at the masjid. They always get the smaller room. And sometimes they're encouraged to remain uneducated, or that, they say, like, they said to them that, oh, they need to do all the housework and all this stuff. And sometimes there's so many harmful things that are said about women. And rightfully so, I was quite angered and upset about that. And I think a lot of you sitting here in front of me might feel those feelings, or might have experienced, or people in your life, or things that you've seen around you that are, oppressive to women. And but what happened was, then, when I went to uni, I was exposed to a lot of feminist ideas. Now, this is, I think a lot of people don't realize that uni is such a highly politicized space. As soon as I stepped foot at uni in my first day, someone was handing me a pamphlet saying for me to attend some socialism event or something. First day, haven't gone to any classes, just stepped off the tram, and I got that highly politicized space. And I think that parents normally, fret about gender mixing and that kind of thing, but I think the political side of it deserves more attention. But anyway, so I started kind of identifying with feminist ideas, and I started to think that it made a lot of sense, which parts of it really do make a lot of sense. And I thought that, I've always seen this injustice towards women, and I've always opposed it, but now there is this name, like there is something I can kind of identify with, like these people are speaking out against all this stuff that is so wrong and shedding a light on a lot of important issues. And I would ask a lot of questions about the way things are, and everything kind of seemed unfair in my eyes. And when I look back, though, I realized when I was asking those questions, I wasn't actually listening. I wasn't truly listening, because I only wanted to hear what I wanted to hear at that time. And I know that this is true for a lot of feminists in my interactions with them, and I've met a lot of them. And over time, I grew increasingly resentful of everything I saw that could have like the slightest possibility of it being unfair against women. And once I paused and reflected on myself, I realized that this isn't what I wanted from feminism. It was supposed to relieve my anger and not to magnify it. I also realized that I didn't actually know what feminism was. I never read any literature about feminism, never read what those big feminist icons, the people who set the groundwork for feminism, I've never read any of their books. And I was never exposed to any criticisms about feminism either. I was basically what they call an echo chamber. And then I made the decision to open my eyes and to actually have a look at what this thing even is. And so I'm going to share with you like sort of what I've learned over that time. And so the most important thing I realized was that feminism is not actually just about women's rights. It is more than that. So this is Gloria Steinem. She is like one of the most famous feminists, and she says, a feminist is anyone who recognizes the equality and full humanity of women and men. So that's basically what feminists claim that it's about. So it's not just women's rights. As you can probably gather from that video, feminism is actually an ideology, a complete ideology, and it has a lot of different ideas that goes within it. So with feminism, there's what they call the three waves of feminism, which is the way that feminism developed. So the first wave of feminism was not that bad. Like it was kind of like they were wanting rights that actually things like inheritance and the right to education, the right to vote, things that actually it's surprising because Islam gave these rights 1400 years ago, and it's quite sad because they didn't have those rights until so like not so long ago, and those were very well founded and like real arguments and shone a light on real issues. But the second and third wave is where it started to get quite uh, mixed up, and they have a lot of contradictions and things. So feminism itself is actually quite hard to define, and feminists themselves, often have conflict about what it means to be a feminist and which parts they should they keep in and which parts should they leave out. So it's not one concrete idea. A really big part of feminism is that liberalism. So which is the idea that it's a Eurocentric concept which believes that, and it focuses on the freedom of individuals, um, and democracy and self-actualization, that kind of thing. So it's the idea that I have the freedom to do what I want as long as it doesn't create any harm for someone else. Um, so cosmology is the way that you understand how the universe came to be. So they have philosophical naturalism is their cosmology. This means that everything is material, that nothing is supernatural. So by extension, um, feminist ideology rejects the idea of God, rejects the idea of the unseen, il-ghaib, all these kinds of things that are quite important for Muslims. And also it's very postmodernist. So postmodernism is the idea that there is no objective truth, that there are only opinions and facts, and they don't really have a concept of morality, because if you don't have uh, objective truth, it's really hard to determine what is moral and what is not. So these are just some of the ideas that feminism is kind of based on, and there is a lot more, and as you can see, it gets really complicated and really philosophical. So what tends to happen is people call themselves a feminist, but they haven't even read anything or know anything about the philosophy of feminism. Um, so Islam and feminism do have things in common, of course. They are not, we don't need to kind of completely reject everything about it and to feel very, strongly against it and all these kinds of things. So the things that they have in common are things like, obviously, the belief that women have the right to vote, women should participate in society, that women should be treated as humans, and that women should have equal access to education. Whereas where they differ, I made a little table here so we can see. Um, so what's called the philosophical paradigm of each ideology. So a philosophical paradigm is basically a launch pad. So if you think of a rocket and the launch pad that it sits on, the philosophical paradigm is, and the rocket is the ideology. It's the basis for this rocket or this ideology. It's the foundation, basically. So Islam believes in the unseen, of course, whereas feminism believes in the natural world only, which is what we said was naturalism. Islam is a religion sent from God. Feminism is an ideology created by humans. Islam believes that everything in this world, including our bodies, actually belongs to God, whereas feminism believes like the body is our possession. Islam believes in an absolute truth, whereas feminism does not believe in an absolute truth, only experiences and opinions, which is postmodernism. Islam uses logic and scripture as evidence, whereas feminism uses history and culture as evidence. Islam believes that freedom is complete submission to God, whereas feminism is freedom is being able to do what you want. Islam began since the start of time, whereas feminism began in the 19th century. So now that we have some idea about some of the philosophical ideas about feminism, I want to give you guys something to do now, so which is think about the statement, which is my body, my choice, which is a really big feminist slogan. Has anyone heard of this? Yeah? Yep, really. Like if you go to like a feminist protest, you'll probably see them holding a sign that says that or something similar to it. So I want you guys to think, what are some of the underlying ideas behind this concept? So I'll give you a few minutes to think about it, and then should I pick on people? Yeah? So you can discuss a little bit, see what you think. Okay, I'll bring you back to the front. So wrap up your conversation. Yeah? Does anyone want to share what they discussed? Who wants to share what they discussed? Zainab, do you want to? Yeah? Yeah, it's a really good point. Yeah? Yeah, do you want to share? Yeah. So in Islam, though, what we say is that the body is a trust from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah gave it. It's like a gift for us, right? The reason we don't say that we own our body is if I ask you, did you choose when you were born? Did you choose what color your skin is? Can you choose when you die? So if the angel of death came to wants to take your soul, can you tell him no, wait? Okay, so we don't fully own our body. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a bit of, obviously we can control it, but we don't own it in the way that it is ours, fully. So my body is this godless understanding about the body, whereas we say that the body is a trust from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not really fully our choice what we do with it, so we have to trust in Allah's laws that He puts, that are, yeah, exactly. If your money is not yours because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could take it away at any moment. You don't have true full ownership of it. So that's why, like, you have to give zakat and khumus and charity because it's not yours to begin with. It's actually Allah's money. It's just that Allah gives you a bit of authority to test you, see what you will do with this bit of authority. The second aspect, which is my choice, which is liberalism. So this freedom is the ability for me kind of to do what I want. It's all about my body, my choice. I can do whatever I want as long as I don't harm anyone. Does anyone know what's wrong with this idea? That I can do anything I want as long as I don't harm anyone. Does this sound good? No? Why not? Yeah. Yeah. The problem with it, exactly, because a lot of people's choices actually do create harm. And if you don't have a moral basis, how do you know what is harm and what isn't harm? So there's this idea that, for example, it's just a something for you to think about. They said, like, so there's been, like, there's actually websites and things where, like, these criminal men, what they'll do is they'll put, like, cameras in women's bathrooms and put the videos that they get online. So someone can, is this harmful? Put your hand up if you think that's harmful. Yeah. Well, you can say that if the woman never find out, then there is no real harm, right? So this is the problem when we say this, we don't have a moral basis. What they're doing is completely and totally, like, so unjust and so criminal. So it's not always just about our conception of what's harmful anyway. Sometimes even if the person doesn't know that you're doing something bad to them, it's still harmful because it's injustice, and injustice, anything you do is an injustice against the whole universe and against the God that created you. So, and you're not alone in this world. Yeah. And mostly your choices, a lot of the time your choices, you know, if you want to be a very selfish person, you're going to hurt others with that. You're going to take more than what is your right to take, or you're going to be doing things that hurt others. And the dangers, some of the dangers of this, I think he already touched upon that, which is so worshipping the self and your desires above God. And that abortion becomes justified if you agree with the statement and all the ideas behind that. You can justify having as many partners as you want because it's your body, your choice. And you can wear as much or as little as you want because, again, it's your body, so it's your choice if you agree with this statement. So I want to talk now a little bit about patriarchy and the problem with it. So patriarchy, for anyone who doesn't know, is kind of defined as a system that privileges men and subjugates women so that men have the ultimate power and authority. And what feminists believe is that we all live in this patriarchal society, and that all men are inherently a part of this oppressive system. And they see things like, it can be dangerous because you'll start to see things like religion as patriarchal, because you'll say that the prophets were men, and that if you look at this view, rulings that differ between men and women in Islam are not a product of interpretation of revelation, but a product of men deciding what revelation says in a way that would privilege them. And so what would happen is that, you know, a prophet, astaghfirullah, might get a revelation, and because it says something about men and women that's different, you know, they'll twist it and they'll make it somehow that it will privilege men over women. And patriarchy also ignores that women have a lot of privileges. Even today, you know, feminists like to give the idea that all women are oppressed and they are victims. Some of the dangers of this is that they are not all feminists, but some of them can go as far as to say things like, how can, all men are part of this. And so then the danger of that is a woman can never trust her dad or her brother or her uncle or her husband, because they're all part of this oppressive system. So I'm gonna show you a video clip that talks a little bit about patriarchy. So I'll play that now. So now, huh? Yeah, you see, it is much more complicated than I think people often make it out to be, and it's important to understand something before associating yourself with it. So I'm going to just analyze some of the real life implications and dangers of feminism. So the first one is the destruction of motherhood and the family. So in 1976, the French feminist icon Simone de Beauvoir, which is one of the feminists who laid the groundwork for feminism with her books, She says no woman should be authorized to stay home to raise her children. Women should not have that choice, because if there is such a choice, too many women will make that one. So it's funny because they advocate for choice, but only the choices that they want you to make. So and there's also this from Linda Gordon, which is another famous feminist. She says that the nuclear family must be destroyed. Nuclear meaning like mom, dad with kids. Whatever its ultimate meaning, the breakup of families now is an objectively revolutionary process. I think that's quite sad, because I know that the family structure has, historically, it is really important, but a lot of the time women are oppressed within that structure, being made to clean and cook, being the sole responsibilities of that. And I think this is a reaction to that. The thing is, they don't give a replacement for this. They kind of just say this all needs to be destroyed, which is really sad, because just because people aren't doing this right doesn't mean that thing isn't good. There is this in the Daily Telegraph where there was this lady arguing that it should actually be illegal for women to stay at home if their children are school aged, and that both parents need to work. And she makes claims like, she's in Australia. She says that Australia's economy is declining because women need to go to work and all this stuff, that we have one of the highest rates of female unemployment. And so her solution for that is to make it illegal for a woman to stay at home with her kids. And so women are made to feel quite guilty about making the choice to stay at home with their kids, especially if they have a degree. So if you go to uni and study for a couple of years, and then you have a child and you decide you want to look after this child, this is seen as a waste of your employment. So children having a highly educated mother is seen as a waste, but it's not a waste if you go and contribute to a company's profit. So, and then this kind of leads to this really unfortunate cycle, which is becoming increasingly common now, which is that people put their children into childcare. They pay a stranger to look after their children so that they can go work. And then when those children grow older, they pay a stranger to look after their parents so that they can go and work. And it becomes that we have a society which is so invested in profits and capitalism and all this, that relationships and family and friendships are not the priority. And I'll show you this. This is the statistics for the fertility rate by country of mothers' birth in Australia. And they're actually facing a lot of problems because of this, because mothers aren't really encouraged, and it's seen as kind of embarrassing if you stay home with the kids and you're not career driven and all this kind of stuff. So in Australia, Australian-born mothers are giving birth below the replacement rate of 2.1, which means there's more people dying than being born if it was left, for Australian women. And so Australia is actually relying on immigration. And you can see that the highest rate is Lebanese women. So it's, you can kind of see some of the ways that this doesn't fit well with real life. So Australia is actually facing quite a problem. And there's these things called baby deserts, there's parts of Sydney and Melbourne which are suburbs which have no children or babies. They are only, young couples, and that's a problem. You need a young population in order to have a workforce, in order to have lots of things. So that's again one of the dangers of this type of attitude. The second danger is the destruction of marriage. So marriage is actually explained by a lot of feminists to be a result of patriarchy, so that men use marriage in order to kind of claim ownership for this woman, that this woman then belongs to them in a way. And this is a quote by Sheila Cronin, which is the leader of the feminist organization called Now. She says that since marriage constitutes slavery for women, it is clear that the women's movement must concentrate on attacking this institution. Freedom for women cannot be won without without the abolition of marriage. So again, just because that, men have been quite oppressive to women in a lot of cases in this institution of marriage, it doesn't mean that we need to eliminate marriage. It just means that we need to find, that the men need to stop oppressing, and they need to, do what God wants them to do and not transgressing those limits. They're not transgressing the mizan that we talked about earlier. So they advocate for reproductive freedom and having as many partners as you like, who of course can be of any of the many genders that they define. And this, so the third thing is the swapping of the masculine and feminine traits. So second and third wave feminism talks about the idea that gender is a social construct. But what they do is really interesting, which is this picture of this man with the flowers. I saw as part of this project that this photographer wanted to do, which was they wanted to take what was stereotypically seen as the most toxically masculine people, which are black men, and contrast them with femininity. So what they did was they got these black men and got them to pose with flowers. So like they'll do kind of stereotypically female poses, and this is celebrated as this is celebrated as being something really revolutionary and empowering. Whereas if a female were to do that, that's seen as kind of misogynistic, that you're kind of weak, you just like pink things and flowers and that kind of thing. When a man does it, it's celebrated. And likewise for a woman, this picture here is from a TV show, which is, it's got quite feminist ideas in it. And you can see this is again very highly celebrated, which is a woman displaying quite masculine traits. So kind of like short hair, she has her hair cut shaved from the bottom, and doing something that's strong and tough and masculine, and this is seen as really positive. So for them, it doesn't matter, there's nothing wrong with those traits as long as a male does the feminine thing and a female does the masculine thing. And I can also remember when I was a kid, I used to, if my mom wanted to buy me something pink, I'd be like, oh, but like, it's a bit kind of embarrassing. It's kind of, and it was really cool to be a tomboy. It was cool to like dark colors. And then I was I met this other girl, and she said the same thing. She said that for a while she lied to herself and told herself she doesn't like pink, but then she realized that was actually her favorite color. But she has been taught that that's embarrassing for a girl to like pink, because they've put that it means that you're weak, it means that you're soft, it means all these negative things. And the way that I look at this, though, is I compare it to the idea of having curly hair versus straight hair. So people with straight hair might think, oh, my hair is so boring, it's too limp, I wish it had more volume, and they might spend every morning curling their hair, damaging it in the process. And at the same time, someone with curly hair might say, why is my hair so frizzy? Was it so voluminous? I wish I could just wake up and have straight hair. And they'll wake up every morning and they'll straighten their hair, in the process damaging it as well. And I think this is what happens when you don't appreciate what you have and you want something that you don't. So men should appreciate the traits that they have, and women should appreciate the traits that they have, instead of trying to be something that they're not. The issue is that they relate these traits with the feminine traits of being weak. But I can say that you can be fully feminine in every aspect of the word and still be strong and intelligent and all those other things. You don't have to give that up in order to be intelligent or to contribute in society. You know, femininity is not something to be opposed and fought against. So I want to talk about Islam's perspective now. So males and females in Islam are equal in their humanity. In front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are equal, and there's nothing that distinguishes them apart from taqwa, of course. But in Islam as well, we acknowledge that males and females are different. So, and we acknowledge this difference and we account for this difference. Feminists, on the other hand, like Simone de Beauvoir, she acknowledges that men and women are different, and there's a lot of, differences between them, but she says that we need to ignore these differences. No, Islam says we don't ignore these differences, we take them into account, and in terms of the humanity, males and females are the same. And no one is better than the other. They are both deficient. Males and females both have deficiencies, but they're differently deficient. And that's the thing that makes them complementary to each other. So, and Islam, of course, allows women to participate in social, political, economic life whilst retaining their full femininity, whereas feminism wants to erase this femininity. So Islam is saying you can vote, you can study, you can do all of that, and you can still be fully feminine. In Surah An-Nisa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Ya ayyuhan nasu taqu rabbukum alladhi khalaqakum min nafsin wahida. So, O mankind, fear your Lord who created you from one soul. So the male and the female come from the same source. And in Islam, of course, we have, because we already said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, He is just, and He is the source of justice, and He created this universe on this foundation of justice. So of course, in real Islam, women are given all their rights. The problem is that men may not give women their rights, but it's not that Islam didn't give women their rights. So firstly, do you want to give out these? So we have a pamphlet that Noor will come around and give. It's a good little summary about women's rights in Islam and the way that Islam deals with these issues. So the first one is equal reward and equal accountability. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that Allah has promised to the believers, men and women, gardens under which rivers flow to dwell therein, and beautiful mansions in gardens of everlasting bliss. And that never will I allow the loss of the work of any worker amongst you, male or female. You are from one another. So, and then with equal right to knowledge, there is the hadith from the Holy Prophet, which is that طلب العلم فريضة على كل مسلم ومسلمة, that seeking knowledge is compulsory on every male and female. So these are the things that feminists have been fighting for since, and they haven't gotten this right until not very long ago, whereas Islam actually gave this to them 1,400 years ago. Equal right to choose a spouse, that it is any marriage that takes place where the woman is not agreeing to this, that marriage is null and void. And I think there's a lot of these marriages used to be unfortunately quite common, but they're actually void in Islam, because if the girl doesn't want to get married, then you can't actually have a marriage. And it's interesting the way Islam views women and their right to work. So a woman, of course, has the right to work. She has the choice to work or to stay at home, of course, because you can have both options, but any money she makes is hers only. And she can choose if she wants to spend it on her family or not. She has this freedom and this choice. Whereas a man, first of all, must work. He doesn't have the choice. And he must spend it on his family. His money isn't really fully his. So I think that's great. And I think a lot of the time when they, now with feminism and stuff, men are starting to say, wait, but it's not fair that we have to work and spend on you. You know, you go and work, and it's like this is something that a lot of people don't realize. That's a big privilege that we have. Like we don't have this pressure, and especially in this day and age where you know people have become more like robots, just you know going after you know industrialization. Humans kind of got stripped of their essence, and they became valuable only in so much as they can, you know, in their production and how much they can help a company gain profit, basically. And so this is why, like you see that, you know, elderly people or disabled people or these kinds of people who aren't, you know, productive in capitalist terms, they're seen as less valuable and they get just chucked into just institutions, and you know, it's quite sad. And even I think even men, like a lot of the times, they probably wish they didn't have to work. You know, who doesn't want to stay home and you know spend time with your family? That's like what we all want to do, you know. So at the same time, you have this right to education and to work and to, you know, advance your career as much as you like. But the point is that you're not forced to do that, whereas a man is forced to do it. And of course, some hadiths which are that the Prophet said that the best of you is he who is best to his wife. And I know this is said so many times, but I don't think we understand how profound this is, because there are so many sheikhs or you know men who look very religious. When it comes to how they treat their wife, they fail in that test. And the Prophet here is saying, I don't care about how much you look religious, how much you pray, how much you do all these things. If you can't even treat your wife well, then you know you're not even doing what Islam wanted you to do to begin with. So, in a sense, the Prophet is defining Islam. This is again because Islam is about manners and how you treat people. So, yeah, I think that's quite a significant hadith. And I wanted to also kind of finish off by saying that Islam actually literally means submission. And I think even this word submission is probably not something that feminists would really be comfortable with. They don't like, you know, this idea of submission, of course. Submission to a man is not a great thing, but submission is a beautiful thing if you submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Islam in and of itself is about submission to our Creator and not to our own desires. And at times, we might think, even in Islam, we'll think that things don't seem fair, or that we want things to be a certain way, and they're not. But we have to notice when we're making a valid argument, or when we're actually just worshipping our own wants. And sujood, there's two types of sujood, which is sujood takwini, which is a sujood by default, and a sujood tashri'i, which is a sujood that there's a order to do sujood. So what we said about the universe is that the universe does sujood takwini. The universe, by its very the way that it's created, it obeys and submits to the will of Allah, and as such creates this beautiful harmony. Like we said, if the earth or the sun or the moon decided that they wanted to not submit and to the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, life wouldn't be possible. If the sun moved away by a few centimeters, you know, the universe is in this perfect mizan, this perfect balance. And I think what's really dangerous is when people, you know, everyone has a natural need for an ideology or a belief. It's a way to bring order to your life. And even those who claim that they don't have a religion, they actually do. Everyone has some kind of ideology, you know? You see, and for some people, feminism becomes their religion, which is when it's very dangerous. So we say that we are fully Muslim. We submit to the will of Allah and not to the will of any feminists or anyone else who wants to tell us how we can get our rights. We say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only source of our rights, and so as such we submit to Him. And so to conclude, so feminism is not just women's rights, it's an ideology. Islam gives you all the benefits of feminism, like I showed you with that Venn diagram. It gives you those rights that feminism originally started to fight for, but without all of the other negatives that feminism then turned into. So you've got the best of both worlds, basically. I want to tell you all to relish, cherish, and never be ashamed of your femininity. Don't feel like you can't express your femininity to the full extent, because it shouldn't stop you from doing anything that you do want to do. And that true empowerment, peace, and freedom is found in submitting to our Creator and going in line with the nature of this universe. And this is basically like when I was telling you about my kind of journey and how when I was sort of, kind of starting to relate to feminist ideas, I started to become quite angry. And I realized that instead of this state of turbulence that you start to feel, when I started to learn that Islam truly does give women their rights, when you start to read up about it and you start to see the truth in everything and start to not see the world through your liberalism, naturalism glasses that you might have on and you don't know you have on. I realized that and the more I realized this, I found tranquility, and I really loved being a female and not feeling like, if I was just born a man, I could do this and that. I appreciated the fact that I am a female and my femininity is not going to be a barrier for me. And instead of the state of anger, hate, and turbulence that feminism gave me, I found true peace in my full submission to the Creator. Sallallahu Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So now we'll open it to you guys, and if there's any questions or anything you want to